The chords of the harmonic minor scale, what happens when we look at those and we compare them to the minor scale, and what happens when we build seventh chords from the harmonic minor. So if you don't know, the difference between the natural minor and the harmonic minor is just the fact that the seventh degree of the harmonic minor is sharpened. Therefore, every note containing a G is now G sharp, affecting any chord that has that note in it. So in this case, it's G sharp because it comes from G in the A minor scale. Whatever minor scale you're using, it's just sharpening that seventh degree. Okay, so let's look at the chords, we'll see the differences, and then we'll understand why after this. So when we look at it, we see that some chords are the same, some chords are different, so let's go over it. Okay, so the 1 is minor in both the natural minor and the harmonic minor. The 2 is diminished in both as well, so nothing changes when I'm saying that it's the same in both. And as you can see, the 3 is a major in natural minor, but it is a augmented 3 in harmonic minor. The 4 is a minor chord in both. The 5 is a minor chord in the natural minor, but it is a major 5 in the harmonic minor. The 6 is major in both, while the 7th is a major in the natural minor and it becomes a diminished in the harmonic minor. So now let's understand why this is. And this is because every chord that has the note G in it is now affected. Okay, so now we can visually see every chord spelled out and we can see the G sharps in those, and now we can understand why they're affected. So for the 3 chord, it becomes an augmented chord because originally it's a major chord. So you have 4 semitones between the 1 and the 3, and you have 3 semitones between the 3 and the 5. Now in the harmonic minor, we have that G sharp, so now the last note is getting extended by 1 semitone. So now we're adding that extra step to it, so now we have 4 semitones between the 1 and the 3, and now the 3 and the 5 have 4 semitones as well. And the reason why I'm not saying the notes C and E and G, and I'm saying the 1, 3, and the 5, is because the point is not the notes, but the fact is that we're looking at a augmented 3 chord here. The notes are helping us understand why it is an augmented 3 chord. Next, the 4 is minor in both, so it stays the same. Next, the 5 has that G sharp in there. So whenever you have a minor chord and you sharpen the 3rd, now you have a major chord. And if you have a major chord and you flatten the 3rd, now you have a minor chord. So in this case, we started off with E, G, and B, so that's a minor chord. Because the 1 and the 3, we have those 3 semitones, and in the 3 and the 5, we have those 4 semitones. But now we're sharpening that 3rd. So now between the 1 and the 3, there's 4 semitones. Between the 3 and the 5, there's 3 semitones. First 4 semitones originally between G and B without the G sharp. And last, since the 7th degree was the note that was sharpened, the root note is the note that is sharpened. Therefore, originally G, B, and D is a major chord. Instead of having 4 semitones and 3 semitones, now we have 3 semitones between the 1 and the 3, and 3 semitones between the 3 and the 5, so we have that diminished triad. Alright, so now what happens when we start to add sevenths to these chords? As you can see, we get some pretty different results compared to our natural minor scale. And the reason why I'm not showing you the 7th chords from the natural minor is because the natural minor 7th chords are the same as the major scale 7th chords, just arranged in a different order, since the minor scale uses the same notes as the major scale, just arranged in a different order. The chords, again, are exactly the same, just arranged in a different order. So I don't have it listed here, but I'll also be comparing it to the natural minor just as I'm going along with it. Next, here's a really good tip for finding out if your 7th of your 7 chord is a major or minor. And this is really important because this helps you understand the quality of your 7th chord, whether it's major, minor, diminished, or whatever it is. Okay, so the tip is to find out if your 7th is major or minor. You're going to look at your 7th of your chord and you're going to see, is it 1 semitone away from your root or is it 2 semitones away from your root? So you can think of this in 2 different ways. You can think of your root note and you can think 1 note back because that's always your 7th. So here we have an A. We're going to think 1 note back. Of course, it's a G. And here we have a G sharp. So since G sharp is 1 semitone away from an A, that means A and G sharp are a major 7th. So you can think about it going back or you can think about it going forward. In other words, you can think 1 semitone back from A is G sharp. So that's a major seventh. Or this is probably a better way. You can just think, okay, one note back from an A is a G. And if you're looking at the chord and you see a G sharp, then you know that G sharp is a semitone away from A. So now you know if it's a semitone difference, it's a major. Or you can think, okay, if you're making a chord, okay, if I want to make this a major seventh on top of this, I'm going to add the note that's a semitone away from the root. Or if I want to make it that minor seventh, it's going to be those two semitones away from the root. Okay, so now that we went over that, it's going to make a lot more sense when I go over this. And now I'm going to show you how this helps us find the quality of these chords. Okay, so first off, we have a minor major chord. This may be a chord that you haven't heard of. It definitely is a chord that's not as common as your major or minor or even half diminished chord. But nonetheless, it is a really good chord. So why is it a minor major chord? So this help that I talked about, this seventh, because the reason why it's a minor major seventh chord is because we have this minor triad. So A, C, and E is a minor triad. A and G sharp, remember we can think G sharp is a half step away from A. So we have a major seventh. So when you have a minor triad with a major seventh on top of it, you're actually dealing with a minor major chord. And this is compared to, in our natural minor, we just have a minor seventh chord as our first chord. Next, we're familiar with this. This is the same in natural minor and a harmonic minor. We have this half diminished chord. The nature of this video is not to explain seventh chords, but is to show you the nature of the harmonic minor scale. So if you do want to find out more about finding out the quality of seventh chords, I have a video all about that, and it will be in the description. So now in our seventh chords, just like in our triads, in any case that a chord has the seventh degree in it, so in this case it's just any time we have this G sharp note, it's going to be affecting the chord compared to the natural minor scale, which doesn't have that G sharp note in it, which is that raised seventh degree. So next we have an augmented major chord, and this is because we have an augmented triad, and then we have a major seventh. This is compared to a major 3 chord in the natural minor scale. Chord 4 is a minor 7th chord, which is the same in the natural minor scale and harmonic minor scale. Our chord 5 becomes a dominant 7th chord, and this is because E, G sharp, and B now create a major triad. E and D is a minor 7th. So that's the nature of a dominant 7th chord, is having that major triad and then that minor 7th on top of it. This is compared to a minor 7th chord in the natural minor scale. The 6, we can see there's no G here, so this is the same in natural and harmonic. We have a major 7th chord. Next, the 7th becomes a fully diminished chord, an extremely dissonant tone that has a lot of uses as well as a ton of resolutions that can make a lot of interesting musical statements. This is fully diminished because this G sharp and B create that minor third. Then B and D create that minor third, so now we have a minor triad. And then between G sharp and F, we have a diminished 7th. And okay, we could think about this one real quick. It's a diminished 7th. Why? And that's because it's 3 semitones away from our root. So if we think of our F, which is the 7th, and we start counting up from that, we have an F sharp, we have a G, and then we have a G sharp 3 semitones away from the F. So that's a diminished 7 on top of a diminished triad, a fully diminished chord. And this is compared to a dominant 7th chord in the natural minor scale.